Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to be talking about imitation, which I found to be very interesting, and this is obviously talking about like babies development, human development, Piaget's theory of the four stages of basically from when you're born into puberty or adolescence. So I found 11 different ways of imitation consulting ChatGPT, and I found them to be very interesting, and I thought I'd share them with you today. Imitation. Let's think about imitation as like if someone says hello and you say hello, and they say stop copying me. You say stop copying me, and you say no, really, right? And you're imitating exactly what the other person is saying, right? Or if your parents, right, when you were little, if like your dad took a drink of his beer and then you took a drink of your soda, and you did, you were imitating, you were copying exactly the same behavior. Now this could be also done with words, right, or in other different ways, which we're going to be looking at. But they're basically, Piaget talks about how we develop cognition or our mental capacity, right, for problem solving, for intelligence. And this is a very basic level of memory, application of memory, memory activation, and symbolic representation, because you're able to do what the other person is doing because you're able to represent it in your mind. I mean, with all of the 10 imitations methods, which I'm going to talk about here, but with one of them, it's immediate, so it's in the moment. So that one doesn't really rely, which is the first one I'm going to be talking about. That one doesn't really rely on mental cognition or on mental capacities. That one's just like more of a reflex, right? We could even say. But the other ones require you to like in Piaget's theory, like the permanence of object, when the baby knows that the thing exists even if it's not there anymore, because they have a mental representation of that now, right? So imitation works in this way, and it also activates memory, because now you have to remember what that other person did, so you're able to imitate it, right? So memory is working, and symbolic representation is working there, right, at a cognitive level. And this is all thanks to all of the ideas that Piaget talked about. So let's get into the first one. The first one is called immediate imitation, and this one doesn't really require a lot of mental capacities. It says this occurs when an individual replicates an observed action right away, without delay. It's a foundational form of learning, as it allows the learner to practice observed behavior instantly, right? So it's like, do it like this, and you do it like that, right? And you copy the person and you learn it, and it's immediately, right? An example, an adult claps their hands, and a child immediately mimics the action by clapping as well, right? So this is like immediate imitation. You show someone how to do something and you expect them to do it right away in that moment, right? And like I said, it's more of a reflex. They are learning it, but you could say this is like how machines learn, right? It's at a machine robotic level, right? There's no humanity in it yet, right? Okay, now the second one is called deferred imitation, which I would beg to question if it could also be called delayed imitation. And it says this type of imitation involves producing an action after a significant time delay, which indicates memory and cognitive development. It's particularly important in Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. An example, a child sees their parent making a phone call, and a day later the child mimics using a toy phone in the same way, which is also symbolic, and I'm going to get into this in the third one. But in this one, what you're basically working with is now a child that can remember. So they're using memory, and they're learning that behavior because they're able to act it out, right? It's like they could know it, but we don't know they know it until they either tell us they know it or they act it out, and we say, oh, see, they learned that from you. This is kind of like when they say, well, kids learn more by implicit things than explicit things. So if you tell a kid don't smoke, and then they see their parents smoking, right, they're gonna mimic that, right? Again, this is all symbolic representation, and this is like kids at 2, 3, 4 years old, right? So yeah, the late imitation, it basically talks about how now they're working with a memory, they have the mental capacity to remember and basically play it out, right? Act it out, like actors, which is what kids do, right? When they play house or doctor. Which brings us to the third one, symbolic imitation. Symbolic imitation involves imitating actions that symbolize something beyond their immediate reality, often found in pretend play or role playing. Example, a child pretends to be a teacher, copying the actions of their own teacher by writing on a pretend blackboard and explaining things to imaginary students, right? Like imaginary friends, or playing doctor or playing house, right? So this stage right here, which is Piaget's second stage, pre-operational, talks about a lot of these things, right? How role playing is vital. It basically develops further social skills, and I think about this like in terms of adults, right? How we kind of do this also, like in the videos that I've been speaking about, hypotheticals, right? Conditionals, that makes you think more about possible consequences, possible outcomes, possible alternatives, right? It gives you more options into your decision making process, right? It makes you like, it gives you a broader perspective of things, right? Not so much the cliche open your mind type of bullshit that's out there, but actually practical advice and applied advice. Use conditionals, use hypotheticals, right? In this case, the kids are using symbolic imitation of things obviously that they see, but you can see that their cognition is starting to develop because they're able to remember that, and not only remember it but play it out and then watch it unfold before their very eyes, and accommodate to that, change their behaviors to that, right? Which is going to be vital for when they grow up and they need to be social, right? That's maybe why they say kids aren't socializing anymore, and it's deteriorating their mental health when they get older, because now they're just exposed to so much technology, right? And they don't have time to play out these things. So then when they grow up, they're antisocial because they never got to practice this with other kids when they were younger, right? Okay, the fourth one is called mirroring imitation, also called specular imitation. And it says, in mirroring, the individual reflects the actions they see in the same way as if they were a mirror. This imitation is essential for developing social and emotional skills. So here we get into the emotional and the social skills, right? Example, a child watches an adult crossing their arms and then crosses their arms in the exact same way, right? So this is, to establish rapport with the other person, empathy, right? Like the head cocking when you're listening to someone, but it is kind of stupid, I would say, because this one has to do more with like just, it's like, stop repeating everything I'm saying, stop repeating everything I'm saying, like verbally. This is done, basically, physically, right? You're physically mimicking. If the other person crosses their arms, you cross their arms. If the other person shakes their head no, you shake your head no, right? Which reminded me just now on language. Oh yeah, the way kids express themselves, it was very interesting, because they say that we always think about language, like kids express themselves through language, right? The words that they're saying. But in this chapter that I'm reading on Piaget, it talks about how kids also express themselves through art, right? Through drawing, the things they draw, right? And you could see their cognitive development through their drawings, which is, I found that to be interesting. So it's not only language, right? Not only left hemisphere stuff, but also artistic, drawing, painting, right hemisphere stuff, right? So I thought I'd just do a parenthesis here, as they say in Mexico, and throw that in there. Okay, so the fifth one, functional imitation. Now, these next three have to do more with physical things, tangible things. Functional imitation, this refers to, well, actually, from the fourth one, this refers to copying an action that has a clear function or use, often involving objects or tools. It is crucial for learning how to use objects correctly. An example, a child watches someone using a spoon to eat a soup or to eat soup, and then they attempt to use the spoon in the same way, right? So this is to manipulate like objects, tools, right? Like it says here, spoons, functional imitation. It has a clear function, right? Now, the sixth one, goal directed imitation. This type of imitation involves copying actions that are aimed at achieving a particular goal rather than just the action itself. So, in this case, the objective or the goal is more important than the means, right? The child wants to get to the objective. It doesn't matter how they do it, right? Which a lot of us can probably testify to this and say, yeah, like I want to reach this goal. I don't care how I get there, right? I don't care if I get there through shortcuts, through connections, through luck, through money, like whatever, right? That's ethically it's negative, but I don't care. I just want to get there, right? So it emphasizes the ability to understand the intent behind the action, right? Example, a child watches an adult stack blocks to make a tower and then imitates the stacking, focusing on the goal of building the tower rather than just copying each movement exactly, right? So this is a clear example. The kid wants to build a tower. He sees his father build a tower, and it doesn't matter how, like in Jenga, how you do it, how you put together the singular objects, but you just want to make that tower, right? This one's very interesting. Mortar imitation, which is the seventh one. This refers to the reproduction of observed motor actions, focusing on physical movements. Motor imitation is critical for developing physical coordination and learning new physical skills. So, in this case, a child sees an adult jumping and then imitates the jumping action exactly, learning how to perform that movement, right? So, this is literally motor things like maybe riding a bike. I would even say, like, maybe playing a guitar, playing instruments, right? Kicking a ball, jumping, doing push-ups, sit-ups, maybe doing like a front flip or a back flip, rolling, rolling on your side or things like that. Like this has to do with like physical movements, right? Mortar imitation. Okay, the eighth one, vocal imitation. This type of imitation involves copying sounds, words, or other vocalizations. It is fundamental for language development. An example, an adult says dog and the child repeats the word dog. This is basically, like it says here, fundamental for language development. This is linguistic imitation, right? And I think it's the most common one that we know of, right? All the other ones are kind of like, what, kind of weird, and they're interesting, but this one's like the most basic one, right? Like the mom talking to its kid saying, repeat mama, repeat mama, repeat mama, right? And eventually the kid will start saying mama, right? Okay, the ninth one, over imitation. This occurs when a person, usually a child, copies not only relevant actions, but also unnecessary or irrelevant steps in an activity. It demonstrates a strong social learning mechanism and the desire to follow cultural norms, even when the extra steps serve no practical purpose. I kind of want to say here that I've done this as a kid and I have memories of this, like core memories. And yeah, it's over imitation. You're exaggerating, and I think it's in a way playing like a fool, right? You're trying to, like a clown, like you're trying to make people laugh, right? You're over exaggerating things, probably for humor effect, right? For a comedic purpose. An example, a child watches an adult open a box, but the adult first taps the box 3 times for no reason before opening it. The child then also taps the box 3 times before opening it, right? Let me give you like a clear example here because this reminded me of something. I don't remember when I saw this, but I remember a long time ago I saw someone tap the beer can before opening it, right? And then I started to do that, right? I started to tap like a beer can before opening it, right? And it's just like something, like it says here, there's no clear purpose. It's just like something you do. And or like with my cousins, once I remember that my older cousin, I was a kid, my older cousin would come back from school and I would see him throw his backpack on the ground, right? Kind of like with an attitude. And then I did the same, like, showing off to the rest of my cousins, right? Like later on in the afternoon, in the evening, when everybody was like hanging out and relaxing. I remember I grabbed the backpack and I threw it like he would, and everybody started laughing, right? And I was like exaggerating. So that's kind of what I was referring to at the beginning of this one. Okay, number 10, selective imitation. This one's interesting because this could be applied to things like a parent that's yelling at his kid and saying, why are you drinking? And then the kid's like, well, you drink. And then the father can be, well, yeah, I drink, but I also work, I pay the bills, so it's like I selectively choose what to imitate, right? What's convenient for me, so to say. So, in selective imitation, individuals choose specific aspects of an observed behavior to replicate while ignoring other aspects, right? This indicates higher cognitive processing as the imitator can discern which behaviors are most beneficial to imitate, right? An example, a child sees an adult using a tool in two different ways, but chooses to imitate only the part of the action that seems most effective for their goal. Again, with intent driven, right? This was also one of Piaget's original ideas for the. This actually marks the end of the first stage, which is doing things with the intention, right? Like when you're born, you do things physically, like babies, based on reflexes, right? They just have reflexes. Like I think they like if you if you touch their palm, they close their hand, they make it into a fist because it's like protection, or they say it's like grabbing onto the mom for survival, or they suck their thumb, or they suck whatever they get in their mouth. Another one I think is like if you put them, if you stand them up and their feet touch the floor, they try to walk, right, or imitate walking, but those are all reflexes because they're not doing it like consciously. They're not aware. They're not using mental cognition capabilities or abilities, right? So in this case, um, when we speak of permanence of object from Piaget, we're talking basically about how a kid will remember that something exists even though it's not there, like their mother or a toy that's not in the room at that moment, right? They'll remember it. And based on remembering it, they'll be able to execute actions, coordinate actions, and plan actions to get to that objective. So basically, we could say that at least not maybe phylogenetically, but more ontogenetically, which is dealing with not development as a species, but development as individuals from babies till we die. We can say that intention drives mental cognition capabilities and abilities, right? So it's the things we want that make us think on how to get them, right? I want money, how do I get it, right? And you have to think about it. So yeah, in this case, you basically become pragmatic, right? You become selective. I don't need this, I don't need that. Separate the wheat from the chaff, sort of say, right? But I do need this. I'm going to be practical and only use what I need and achieve my goals, right? Okay, and the last one, sequential imitation, which I think is kind of like the most complex one. This refers to the imitation of a series of actions in the correct order, which helps children learn complex tasks. Example, a child watches an adult wash their hands, and this is a whole process, right? From the moment they turn on the faucet, they get soap in their hands, they rinse, and then they dry their hands, right? And then they repeat the full sequence in the same order, right? Imagine that you're gonna wash your hands and you dry your hands first, and then you apply soap, and then or you turn on the faucet, you rinse, and then you apply soap, and then you leave the bathroom, right? That's the wrong order. First you need to open the faucet, get soap, rinse, and dry, right? It has to go in that order. If you mess up the order, then you're not going to do it correctly. Um, and then repeats the full sequence in the same order. Yes. So this deals with complexity, combinations, right? Creativity also. And after here, we get into more complex terms and more complex ideas, and basically, ultimately, creation, right? Now I'm creating my own things, right? And all of these can be applied to children, but I feel like they can also be applied to any adult, right? Any human being at any stage. Piaget's ideas, for example, the schema idea, the assimilation, accommodation ideas are also very interesting because whenever an adult goes through a crisis, they also have to assimilate new ideas, accommodate their schemas, sometimes maybe even get rid of old schemas and create new ones, which are these mental you could say like mental rooms in your head of things that, if I say family, like all of the people in your family come up, all of the experiences. If I say your work, right, those are your schemas, like what work is, what family is, what money is, right? All of these are schemas, and sometimes um, when they're not in line with reality, we either have to change our schemas or try to assimilate, the new experiences into the schemas that we already have. So Piaget's very interesting, and again, I think that if his theories are applied not only to kids but like adults in general, I think we can learn a lot about ourselves too. So yeah, I just thought I'd share these 11 different ways of imitation. Hope you enjoyed the video, got you thinking. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.